Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle, and just as I got done wrapping up the video on some reels that have come into my shop while I was editing and another group came in, so I thought I would share them with you before I got too much further along. And again, if you see any of these reels that you would like to have done as a project video, and I don't plan to do them, well, let me know and I'll be happy to try and add them to my video request list. So this first group comes in from David, and David sent me 3 reels that he's been having some trouble with. The first is an Okuma granite reel, and this one has a non-functioning bail. It only works a little bit. David tells me he had the reel apart and wasn't able to put the bail back together again. This is probably a good example of something to do on a video, because I get this question all of the time. There's a lot of folks that they take the assembly apart and the spring pops out, and then there's some trouble or difficulty putting that back together again. So I think we'll do one on that. He also sent me in a Shakespeare reel, and as you can tell, what we were just saying there, all of the pieces and parts came out when he attempted to do the bail, and well, that's that same problem. And this will be interesting, I think, because I'm going to guess that this one has a different spring setup than the other one. So this one will have a Z-bar, but I also believe that this one has a hook spring to it, as opposed to the other one, which will have that Z-bar, and then it'll have a coil spring sitting in here. We'll find out. I think we'll do both of these just because they're a good example of how to save a reel, give it a second chance, and not have to toss it. The interesting one in this one is a Penn 209. The Penn 209 is part of the Pier series. This one was in nice condition. I think David may have worked on this one, but he found out that there was a broken idler gear. That's that little plastic gear that sits on these reels. And with that plastic gear, I guess broken, somebody had removed the line guide assembly from the reel. So he had said initially that he was going to fish this one just as a conventional reel. Well, in that case, you don't have to replace the idler gear, because the idler gear drives from the spool to the worm drive and turns that mechanism. So if you're not going to fish it with the line guide, you don't need to replace that plastic wheel. However, further communication with them said, let's go ahead and restore it to what it was with the line guide. So I'll get all of the pieces and parts. There is a video in my library, I think it might have been on a 209 actually, where it showed the complete rebuild of that line guide assembly. So I'm not going to do that as a video, but if you're having trouble locating that, please send me a note, and I will be happy to do that. Well, one of my fishing friends, John, said it's time to get ready for the upcoming spring season, and John brought me over just a whole group of his trolling reels. He asked me if I couldn't tune them up, make sure they're ready to go again. The large majority of these reels are Shimano reels, and they are large reels by comparison to some of the ones that you see me work on, and I think a few of these will make it to the videos. So they're Shimano's for the most part. There's a Penn in here, but this is the Shimano Torium. This is a 30 size. I think I've done the smaller sizes. These are great reels. I always enjoy working on these. These are the ones that have that nuisance spring in here, that if you're not careful, I call them the rocket springs, they tend to shoot. But I'm going to check my library. I know I have the smaller Torium. I'm not sure if I have the larger one. If I don't have the larger one, I will do that one. So we have 130, we have 2 30s, and at least one of them should make it to video. Then we have a big one. This is the Tyrannos, and I don't think I've done this one before. So hopefully we're going to be able to get it out. You can see it's a trolling reel. We have a lot of salt on those screws. They should be stainless screws. This is the business end of the reel. This is the lever drag 2-speed lever drag Tyrannos 32, and we'll make sure we do one of those. Good practice if you're done fishing with them. Leave them in the free spool mode. Don't go ahead and leave that thing engaged. It's only when you leave it engaged, it's putting pressure on the drag washer. The drag washer and the pressure plate unite. If there's grease on that drag washer, you leave the pressure on it and you leave it in storage. That grease on that drag washer will evaporate, and sometimes it'll glue the washer to the pressure plate and cause problems. So just a word of caution there. We have a second one of those as well. So we have a second Shimano Tyrannos 32 II version 2, I guess, or just for the 2-speed version of the reel. And I'm going to make certain that we do at least one of those. And then we have a good old boy here. This one's going to need to get cleaned up a little bit, but this is the Penn 9.0, and this one's been around a long time. This is, when you look at what Penn built the Senator line is one of their earliest editions, and this one is an early edition of the 9.0, and you can tell that because there's a side plate change that came later. But right now you have a side plate where you have the exposed drag washers, so you can actually take the handle and the star adjuster off the collar, and then you can service the drag washers without removing the side plate. So that was a good idea at the time. Of course, the downside to this is it lets water in, right? It's not completely sealed and water can get in there, and sometimes that has a corrosive effect on the metal drag washers that are part of the assembly. And so they changed over to a more narrow opening that's more traditional with the Penn line, and to a system of support where you have to remove the side plate to get that done. This one's certainly seen its share of fishing, which also tells you the older age. You don't have corrosion, you have rub. So this is actually rubbed off over time. But we'll do our best to clean this one up as well as we can, and we'll make sure that this one continues to fishing for John. This one does have the edge side plates on it. It has the sailfish or marlin jumping out of the water. Very nice reel. Always fun to work on those big Penn reels. So those are from John. Then I have one I've had sitting on my bench for a while that I'm going to make certain to do as well. I'm sure I previewed this as part of one of those sales along the way that I acquired. This is a Quantum. It's the Quantum Escalade. I like it because it's a left-hand turning reel, and we've had a little bit of a conversation on that before. When I use the low-profile bait casters in fresh water, I am naturally a righty, and I like to use the left-hand crank on these because it enables me to throw the reel and to retrieve without switching my hands. If you had a right-hand crank, you would be throwing, then you'd have to take the hand off, put the other hand on the pole, turn the thing. So I always like that. This one has just been sitting as a project reel. It turns smooth enough. It does need a rework. We need to replace the line and do some other things, including the lubrication on that. But I don't believe I've done an Escalade before. Quantum is pretty popular. Quantum just got sold over to the Lose group. I think it's Rather Outdoor Products now, the ones that have Lose as their main reel. And so Quantum has become the second choice, if you will. Lose will be the premier brand. This will be the better brand in a good, better, best strategy. This will be number 2 to the Lose reels. So we'll take it apart. We'll show you how that works, and hopefully we'll get that back together. And then finally, I had a question come in, and I think we'll use this one as an example. This is the Mitchell 304. I had 2 questions come in on that one. One of them says, I have a spool rub. When I'm cranking, the spool is making a noise, and that usually indicates that there's either dirt trapped in the channel and you have to remove the spool in order to get that dirt out, or the rotor, most likely the rotor, although it could be the spool, is out of round. And how does that happen? Well, it hits something and it puts it out just enough that the gap is not symmetrical all the way around, that you have a narrow point. And when that happens, you usually get a chink every time a certain revolution occurs. So we'll use that. And then one more fella, I think it was a fella, asked, can I show him how to replace the bail spring on this model? I guess when I did the tune-up on the other one, I did not have that bail spring portion. I normally don't. You don't need to remove bails to do a general service on a reel. And, well, if you do, you probably come back to those first two reels that I showed you, the Shakespeare and the Okuma, both of those bails that were removed during a service that need to be put back together again. But at any rate, I had a request in here how to set the bail spring on this. I'll try and get to that this week as well. So to those of you that are watching, thank you for everything it is that you've done to make my channel successful. To everybody, please stay safe, stay well, and stay watching. And a special shout out to our first responders who are keeping us safe during the pandemic. This is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Have a great day.